Hi, this is Emil Pakarklis, the founder of iPhone Photography School, and in this short video you're going to discover 3 simple photo editing tricks that are guaranteed to improve your iPhone photos. Now, I know these 3 photo editing tricks work really well because these are the same tricks that I use for editing my best iPhone photos that have over 1,000 likes on Instagram. But before we get into the 3 photo editing tricks that you're going to discover today, I want to briefly talk about why you should be editing your iPhone photos in the first place. You see, I have a saying that no editing can turn a bad photo into a good one. But of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be editing your photos, because if you take a decent photo, you can easily make it 10 times better through photo editing. You see, the difference between a good photo and a really great one is often not in how the photo was taken, but in the editing that was done later. So if you don't know how to correctly edit your photos, they definitely won't look as good as they could. But on the other hand, if you apply the 3 tricks we're going to talk about today, the photos that you've already taken will have a much stronger impact than they would without these tricks. Now, there are thousands and thousands of photo editing apps for the iPhone, and you probably already know how to apply all kinds of different filters to your iPhone photos. But let me tell you a little secret. The best iPhone photographers never just apply filters to their photos, hoping that they'll somehow turn a decent photo into a great one. Sure, they may use filters as a part of their editing process, but that's definitely not where their editing stops. And that's because they know photo editing techniques that are far more powerful than applying filters. And it's often because of really great editing that their photos stand out so much. Now, how do you learn to edit photos like these pros? Well, it's quite simple actually. Just watch this video until the end, apply the 3 tricks you're going to discover, and your iPhone photos are guaranteed to improve. Do we have a deal? Okay, let's get started.
Okay, so the first trick we're going to talk about is removing distractions from your photos. Now, to show you an example, here we have an iPhone photo that I took some time ago. And by the way, all the photos we're going to use in this video are, of course, iPhone photos. And the edits are also done on the iPhone because that's the only device I ever use for photography. And of course, if you like to do the edits on the iPad, that's perfectly fine as well. But all the edits that I'm going to show you will be done on the iPhone. And you don't need anything else but the iPhone to do really good photo editing. Now, this photo that you're looking at now has actually been edited before, and I increased contrast and saturation. But the one thing I couldn't really get rid of was those orange distracting lights at the top of the image. And with photos like this, the simpler you can make them and the more you can remove unwanted distractions, the better. And because of that, we're going to use an app called Touch Retouch to remove these orange lights from the photo. Now, this is a paid app, but it's totally worth the price. And if you don't want to pay for this app, you can use the Spot Repair tool in the new version of Snapseed. It works kind of similarly, but I do think that Touch Retouch is better for this kind of edits. And also, I don't want you to think that I'm teaching you any specific apps here. I'm showing you photo editing concepts, and there are many apps that you can use to achieve the same result, not just the one I use. But for now, let me pick up my iPhone and let me show you how to do this kind of edit using the Touch Retouch app. And the first thing I'm going to do is zoom in on the area that we want to adjust, and that is the area at the top, of course. So I'm just using 2 fingers to zoom in at the moment. Now that we're closer to this area that we want to work with, I'm going to select the brush tool from the bottom, and the brush tool is the second tool from the left. So now that we've selected the brush tool, actually it's really simple. We're just going to use 1 finger to paint over the area that we want to affect. So I'm just going to use the brush tool to paint over the entire orange area here. Okay, that looks good. And once I'm happy with the result, I'm just going to press the play button here at the bottom. And once I release my finger, you can see that this problem area has been totally fixed immediately. Now we can use 2 fingers to zoom out a little bit. And you'll see that the image looks really nice. But there's another area that we might want to adjust here at top left. So if we just zoom in a little bit, get closer to this area, then we can once again select the brush tool from the bottom we can use the brush to paint over this area. Then we can make sure that all the orange areas are highlighted as they are now. And we can then once again press the play button. And once the image is processed, you can see that there are no more orange areas here in the sky. And we've been able to successfully remove these distractions and make this image so much more powerful by using the Touch Retouch app to remove unwanted objects. Okay, so here you can see the image before we did anything in Touch Retouch with the orange lights at the top. And here you can see the same photo without any orange lights. And this kind of editing works really good when the background is relatively simple, like it is in this case. With more complex backgrounds, it might not always work so well. And now let me show you one more example of the kind of photo that I could greatly improve by using the Touch Retouch app. So the image you're looking at right now is a beautiful sunset photo. And if you look at this more closely, you'll notice that here on the left-hand side, I have some trees that I don't think really belong there. And once again, with photos like this, the more you can remove distractions and the simpler you can make the composition, the better these photos are going to look. So by doing the same thing that I just showed you, I was actually able to create this version of the photo, which doesn't have any trees on the left-hand side. And of course, here I've also adjusted the colors to make the sunset stand out more. But what I'm trying to show you here is that the editing principles we're talking about really work well. And this particular photo did really well on Instagram, actually. I think it got more than 1,000 likes. And the reason I'm showing you this is that I want you to know how well these techniques work so that you start applying them yourself. Now, the second photo editing trick we're going to talk about today is perspective correction. And if you've never seen this, it's probably going to blow your mind because this is really, really powerful. And I use it a lot in photos of architecture and other tall subjects. So the image you're looking at now is the famous New York City skyline. And if you look at this more closely, you'll see that all the buildings kind of look wider at the top than at the bottom. And that's because of perspective issues coming from the iPhone lens. But that's not how it should be. In real life, of course, all these buildings are equally wide, both at the bottom and at the top. But because of the way the iPhone takes photos, you'll often get this kind of perspective issues when taking photos of taller subjects. So in order to solve this problem, we're going to be using a free photo editing app called Snapseed. And we'll be using the new version of Snapseed. So if your version of Snapseed looks different, make sure you update it to the latest version. But now let me pick up my iPhone and let me show you how to fix this problem using the Snapseed photo editing app. Okay, so you can see that I've already opened this image in Snapseed. And what we're going to do now is tap on this plus icon at the bottom right-hand corner. And from here, we can open the transform module on the left. So once we tap there, we can see the transformation tools. And if we swipe our finger vertically, we have these options. And then if we swipe our finger horizontally, we can adjust the values of these adjustments. And now we're at perspective vertical, which is the one that we're interested in. And you can see how changing the vertical perspective adjustment also changes the perspective of this image. Now, obviously, this is something that we don't want to overdo, and our goal here is to have as many lines in the image be perfectly straight as we can, so that the image looks really natural and we don't have any distorted perspective. So obviously, we're going to decrease this adjustment a little bit, and I think something like 20 is a good starting point. And you'll notice that Snapseed automatically fills up any missing areas that would be outside of the image. So in case this leads to any problems, you can crop out the sides of the image later in case you see some artifacts that shouldn't be there along the margins of the image. But now, if you take a closer look at this, you'll notice that all the buildings are kind of leaning towards the left. So we're also going to use the rotate adjustment here. And our goal is just, as I said before, have as many lines in the image be perfectly straight as we can. So I'm just going to do a little bit of rotationary adjustment, trying to get as many lines straight as I can. And I think this should do the trick. And once I release my finger, you'll see that Snapseed will automatically fill out any missing parts of the image, as it's doing right now. And now this looks pretty good to me. If we click on this before and after icon at top right, you'll see this is the one we started with, and this is what the image looks like now. So once I'm happy with the adjustment, I can tap the OK check mark and apply the changes. Okay, let's once again look at what we've done here. And this image is the original source photo that we started with. Here's the same image after we've made the adjustments. You can see that all the lines are perfectly straight now. The buildings don't get any wider at the top. And this just looks so much better in general. And in photos of architecture like this, it's really important that you get the geometry right. And often the only way to do this is using perspective correction apps such as Snapseed. And if I wanted to take this edit one step further, I'd probably make it black and white, and I'd increase contrast a little bit, and I'd get a photo like this that looks pretty dramatic and that really conveys the magnitude of New York City. But now, let me show you one more example of where this kind of editing can be useful. Okay, so this is the La Jolla Pier in San Diego, and this is a very cool photo, or it has the potential to be a really great photo. But if you look at the poles that hold the pier, you'll see that they get a lot narrower at the top than they are at the bottom. And of course, this is once again a perspective issue because we have a tall subject in front of the iPhone, and we want to correct this in the same way as we just did it in the previous image. So after we correct for perspective, this is the kind of look that we're going to get. And this is a much more powerful look simply because it's so much more symmetrical. And once again, all the lines are perfectly straight, and that's what makes this photo so powerful. And to take this edit one step further, I did some basic color adjustments, and to show you that these techniques actually work, you can see that people really love this photo when I shared it on Instagram. And finally, the third trick I want to talk about today, and this one is probably the most powerful one, is using masks to create selective adjustments. So if you want to have more control and more fine-tuning in your edits, you have to apply these edits selectively only to some parts of the image, and that's where masks come in. So by the way, you can do this with any edits, but let me show you one example where we're going to use masks to create selective adjustments. So the photo we're looking at now is actually a pretty interesting edit that was done in ViscoCam earlier, and essentially this photo was converted to black and white, and then I applied highlights tint to make all the brighter areas of the sky yellow, and that's how you get this kind of look. But there is one problem with this edit, and essentially I've introduced way too much grain in the sky. So there's a lot of noise in the sky, and it doesn't really look good if you get closer or if you were to print out this photo. And in case you can't see this on your own screen, here's the sky a little bit closer. And you can really see that the sky is quite grainy now, and that's not a good thing. But here's what we're going to do to fix the problem. Our goal for this photo is to remove the grain from the sky, but only from the sky, because we don't really have that much grain in other parts of the photo, but at the same time, we don't want to lose any detail in the foreground. And the problem with denoising is that once you reduce noise, you generally also lose detail. So we want to reduce noise in the sky, but we don't want to reduce any detail in the rest of the image. And in order to do this, we're going to use an app called Inlight. Now this is a paid app, but it's absolutely amazing. There are probably dozens of other apps that you can use for the same purpose if you don't like Inlight. But I personally really like Inlight for this type of edits, and it's definitely an app that I recommend getting. So now let me pick up my iPhone and let me show you how you can deal with this type of problem using the Inlight app. Okay, so right now I've already opened the Inlight app, and you can see that I've found the photo that we're going to work with. And the first thing I'm going to do is tap on the icon at the top left-hand corner, and that's going to open all the adjustment options we have inside Inlight. From here, we're going to select Image, which happens to already be open. And inside Image Adjustments, we're going to use the Clarity adjustments, and that will open up a whole bunch of adjustments that we can see here on the right-hand side. We can scroll through these, and the one we're going to work with for this image is called denoise. So right now I'm going to select denoise, and you can see that the entire image now has the denoise adjustment applied to it. Now we can adjust the strength of this adjustment by swiping to the right or to the left. And I think for an image like this, something like 75 would be more or less the correct value. Once again, we don't want to overdo this adjustment, but we want to make sure we eliminate all the grain from the sky. And if we want to make sure how strong the adjustment is, we can use 2 fingers to zoom in, and you can see that pretty much all the grain is gone from the sky. But at the same time, if we go lower here, you'll see that a lot of the detail that used to be in the sea is now gone. So if we press the comparison button, you can see that the waves are quite detailed originally, but once I release my finger, after the denoise effect has been applied, a lot of the detail is gone from the waves. So in order to deal with this, I'm going to select the mask option on the right hand side. And the mask option essentially allows me to apply this denoise adjustment to just some parts of the image that I actually manually select. So here we have a couple of options that we need to look at. The first one is called strength at the bottom right. And I'm just going to select that and increase strength all the way to 100. And this is essentially just how strongly we're applying the effect that we already selected in the previous step. Then we have the clear and fill options on the right hand side. So if we tap on clear, you can see that the entire effect is gone, and now this image no longer has any denoise applied to it. Or we can use the fill, and then that fills the entire image with this effect. Now I'm going to select clear again, and once I press that, the apply icon is automatically selected on the right hand side, and this allows me to use my finger and to gently slide it across the image to apply the effect wherever I want to apply it. So right now you can see that the sky is gradually getting filled up with this effect, and that's because I'm sliding my finger across the sky to paint in the denoise effect. Unfortunately, this app doesn't show you where I'm sliding my finger, but if you look at the sky now, you'll see that across much of the sky, the denoise effect has been applied. So what we can also do is zoom in and get closer to this part of the mountains, and you'll see that we have quite a bit of grain here in this foggy area in front of mountains. But at the same time, I don't want to delete any detail that is in the mountains, and because of that, I'm going to use my finger to selectively apply the denoise just to this wide band of fog, as you can see I'm doing right now. And so as you trace my finger, you can see that in the areas where I've applied the effect, all the noise is gone. And with masks like these, it's generally worth to apply them quite accurately, because that way you're going to get the best results. So I'm just going to take a couple more moments to make sure I apply the effect where I want it to be applied, which essentially means that I want to apply the denoise to all the areas of the sky and to the fog in the background in front of the mountains, but I don't want to apply the denoise effect to the foreground or to the sea. And once I'm happy with the adjustments, I can zoom out, I can see what the final product looks like, and if I tap on the comparison icon here at the bottom right, you can see that this is the image we started with, and once I release my finger, you can see the same image without any noise in the sky. And to confirm these changes, we're going to tap the flatten icon, which is the downward pointing arrow at the bottom right. Okay, so once again, this is the original photo we started with before any edits were applied. And here you can see the same image where we don't have any noise in the sky, but we still have all the detail in the water and in the foreground. And in case you can't really see what I'm talking about, let's get a little bit closer. So here's the original, and you can see that there's a lot of noise in the sky. And here's the photo that we've just edited. And you can see that there's practically no noise in the sky, but at the same time, we still have all the detail in the water. And by the way, this is just one example of how you can use selective adjustments. You can use the same kind of process with any other edits that you do. And the good thing about Inlight is that there's a masking tool like this for everything. Literally any edits you do, you can apply them selectively just like I showed you before. And to really illustrate this point, let me just show you a couple more examples of the kind of edits you can do using the Inlight app together with its masking capabilities. So here in this photo, I really like how the mild winter tones contrast with the clear boiling water. And this is a photo I took with my iPhone in Yellowstone this winter. And the thing I like the most about this photo is probably the tone of the water in the foreground. And if there was a way I could make this water stand out even more, that would be amazing. And of course, using the selective adjustments and using the masking module, just like I showed you before, I can indeed do this, and I can selectively increase the saturation and the contrast only of the water, and that way the water stands out so much more, while at the same time I have not affected the other colors in the image in any way. And that's what makes this photo so powerful, because the water in the foreground is now extremely vivid, extremely beautiful, but the rest of the tones are very much winter-like, and this kind of contrast really makes this image so powerful. And to give you just a couple more ideas, let me show you just one more edit I did using the Inlight app's masking functionalities. And this, by the way, is the same place where I shot one of the previous photos, and what I liked about this image was the bright clothing of the girl, which really caught my attention. And I was thinking about different ways I could make it stand out even more. And so I decided to make this image black and white, but instead of making this whole photo black and white, I actually used a mask to make sure that the girl stays in color. So all the other tones in this image have been converted to black and white, but by using the masking, just like we did before, the girl is still in color. And by the way, you can also use a simple little app called Color Splash. And this app only does this one thing, but it does it really, really well. And it might be a little bit easier than Inlight, but the cool thing about Inlight is that you can do all sorts of crazy adjustments, not just Color Splash-like edits. And that's what I like about this app. And to give you just a couple of more ideas, I decided to experiment with this photo a little bit more. And I decided to add a color gradient on top of this black and white photo. So here I've applied some blue color gradient on top of the photo you just saw before. And of course I didn't want to make the little girl look blue, and I wanted to make sure that her clothes stay red, because red really stands out against blue. And that's what makes this photo so impactful. And of course the only way I could do this was using a mask once again, just like we did before. So once you start using masks to apply adjustments to only some parts of the image, the creative possibilities are really endless. And of course, these techniques actually work really, really well, and if you use them correctly, people on social media will definitely enjoy them as well. So make sure you take some of the ideas you picked up from this video and apply them to your own photos, because if you do, your iPhone photos are guaranteed to improve.
I hope you enjoyed the 3 photo editing tricks that I just shared with you. And while I didn't hold anything back, there's so many other editing techniques and apps that I didn't have time to talk about in this video. In fact, there are so many ways you can improve your iPhone photos through editing that it actually took me 3 years of hard work to master all of them. Now, if you have a lot of time, and if you're really good with technology, you can probably figure it out yourself. That's what I did, and it took me 3 years to get really good. But I wanted to create an easier solution for people like you who want to improve their iPhone photos right now rather than in 3 years. And that's why I created iPhone Editing Academy, which is the only online course that shows you how to make your best iPhone photos even 10 times better through careful photo editing, without spending hours on your photos, and without ruining the quality of your photos in editing. This course covers all the important editing techniques and editing apps you need to be using. So when you sign up, you'll be able to greatly improve any of your photos through editing. Now, I have to warn you that iPhone Editing Academy always sells out quickly, and the registration will only stay open for a few more days. So if you want to find out more about this course, you should do it right now while the registration is still open. So click on that big yellow funny looking button below this video, and it will take you to the next page where you can learn more about iPhone Editing Academy and see if this course is a good fit for you before the registration closes in just a few days. So click on that yellow button below, and I'll see you on the next page.